Next, we will have our third Best Paper Award nominee, and this work is on effect of parent selection methods on modularity. This paper is from Anil Saini and Lee Spector. Please excuse my pronunciation. So we have our presenter Anil here.
Hi.
Hi. So the floor is all yours. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Anil Saini, and today I'm going to present on the paper effect of parent selection methods on modularity. So I'll start with introducing some concepts and definitions used in the paper. Then I will discuss the experimental setup and present the results. Then we'll have some discussion on the results, and I will end with some conclusions drawn from this work and some suggestions for the future work. Let's start with some concepts. Parent selection algorithm is a method which is employed to select individuals from the current generation that can be used to produce individuals for the next generation. Although the selection methods use only errors on the test cases, they can influence other properties of the volume population, which in turn can influence the chances of that population producing a successful individual program. One such property that we look at in this paper is the number of modular individuals and how they change over generations. This analysis can provide us insights to improve the existing selection algorithms. What is a modular program? A modular program is the one which contains at least one code block which is executed multiple times while appearing only once in the program code. In other words, the program should have some form of loops or other control structures that allow for a group of instructions to be executed multiple times. We use three parent selection algorithms: lexicase, tournament, and fitness proportionate. What is lexicase selection? In lexicase selection, the pool of prospective parents is filtered down based on their error on a set of test cases which are ordered randomly. In other words, whenever a parent is needed, the set of test cases is ordered randomly, and then for each test case, only the individuals that perform the best on that test case are kept, and rest are discarded. This winnowing down continues until only one individual remains, which is returned, or if there are multiple individuals remaining after going over all the test cases, one individual is randomly selected. Now please note that unlike other parent selection algorithms, lexicase selection does not aggregate on all test cases, aggregate errors on all test cases into a single value. In tournament selection, with a given tournament size T, for each selection event, T number of individuals are randomly chosen, and then the individual with the least total error is selected as a parent. In fitness proportionate selection, every individual in the population has a probability of getting selected as a parent, which is given by this formulation. So fitness of individual I is the inverse of the total error, and its probability is its fitness divided by the fitness of all other individuals. Now, we use a measure called the reuse metric to calculate the modularity of a given program. It measures how many times a group of instructions gets executed. Specifically, for modules of different sizes, appearing only once in the program, it measures how frequently they appear in the execution trace of the program. Now, what is a module? A module in this paper, we're considering as a group of instructions if that group is executed multiple times. The subset of a module is also a module. For example, if the group of instructions ABC appears where A, B, and C all are instructions, if ABC appears twice in the execution trace, then all these A, B, BC, and ABC, these all are modules. provided ABC appears in the program code. Now note that the order of instructions in the module should be same as the order of instructions in the program code. So here's the exact formulation of the metric. We have M modules where length of ith module is Li and it appears Fi number of times. And U is the number of instructions of the program that are actually executed. If an instruction does not appear in the execution trace, it is not counted in the while calculating the reuse metric. So let's look at a toy example and calculate the reuse metric for that. This small program consists of only 4 instructions. When it is executed, assume we get the following execution trace. So ABC is repeated twice and AAB is repeated thrice, and D is not executed. So the modules would be groups of instructions which are executed at least twice. So we have ABC, AB, and so on and so forth. And using the formulation that we just discussed, we can calculate the reuse. So 3 is the length of the module. 3 is the length of the module ABC, and 2 is its frequency. And AB is AB has a length of 2 and frequency of 3, so on and so forth. And since only 3 instructions are executed, A, B, C, D is not executed. That's why in the denominator we have 2 raised to power 3. Now clearly a program will have non-zero reuse if it has either loop-like or function-like control structures. So loop-like instructions are those that take a group of instructions as input and execute those instructions multiple times. Additionally, function-like instructions are those that label a group of instructions with an identifier. And whenever that identifier or label is called, the same set of instructions is executed. So in this paper, we'll only check whether or not an individual has reuse. We'll not consider the actual magnitude of reuse. And with the current settings, we only have loop-like structures in the program. Let us now talk about the GP system we'll be using for the experiments. We evolve programs in Push, which is a stack-based programming language, in which a program consists of instructions that can take their inputs from and place their outputs on different stacks. Each data type has a separate stack. Program code is placed on the exec stack. There is a stack named exec. And in each step, top item of the exec stack is executed. Now, some instructions can manipulate other instructions present on the exec stack, and it allows programs to manipulate the code block while running. So code blocks can be repeated a certain number of times. They can be executed in an order which is different from the order specified in the program code, etc. This manipulation of instructions allows for the evolution of loop-like control structures. Some examples are given here. So exec loop copies the top item of the exec stack twice, which essentially means executing the top item twice, unless executing the first copy prevents or modifies the execution of the second copy. Similarly, exec do times and exec do range copy the next code block n number of times. And there are many more instructions which perform similar functions. And clearly these all are loop-like control structures. Let us now delve into experimental details. We use Clojure in our experiments, which is a genetic programming system written in Clojure, and it evolves programs in Push language. We select 3 problems with varying size of difficulty and presence of different data types. So in last index of 0, we have been given a vector of integers, and we have to return the index to the last occurrence of 0. All these problems are basically program synthesis problem. In digits, given integer, we have to print the integers digits each on their own line. And in compared string lengths, given 3 strings, we have to return true if the length of the first string is less than the length of second string, which is less than the length of third string. So So other GP parameters are given in this table. We use 3 selection algorithms, X case tournament fitness proportionate, and so prior results suggest that tournament sizes between 4 and 10 perform better than other smaller tournament sizes, at least for these software synthesis problems. Therefore, tournament size of 7 has been chosen, and the population size is 1000. We also do not perform crossover and used only an operator called UMAT. So UMAT has been chosen because it produces the best results in the literature so far for these kind of software synthesis problems. And for each combination of software synthesis and selection algorithm, 15 independent runs were launched. So here's one set of results. This table shows the number of successful runs out of 50 for various for problems under different conditions. So Lexical Selection performs significantly better than other selection algorithms, which is well supported by previous work on Lexical Selection. So here's another set of results. So these plots show the number of individuals with non-zero reuse, number of individuals which has non-zero value of reuse metric with the generation. Each line represents a single run and denotes a number of individuals out of 1000 in a given generation which has non-zero value of reuse metric. And there are some incomplete lines which represent runs that produced a solution before hitting the generation limit of 300. And from these plots, it is evident that with Lexical Selection, most of the lines are concentrated in the upper half, whereas with tournament sizes, there is a much broader distribution. With fitness proportionate selection, the lines are concentrated in the lower half for all lower half for all the problems. So coming to the statistical patterns, this table shows the average number of individuals with non-zero reuse in a generation averaged over all the runs. The table is constructed in the following way. For each run of a given problem, we calculate the average number of modular individuals across all generations in that run. And after we have one number for each run, that is for 50 runs, we calculate the average over all the runs. And if a run succeeds before hitting the generation limit of 300, we do not consider the generation after the generation at which it succeeded. And we have presented the data both for the runs that produced a solution and the runs that failed to produce a solution. Clearly, the number of individuals with non-zero reuse with Lexical Selection is significantly higher than with any other selection methods. And also, as you can see from the last two tables, there seems to be a correlation between the number of individuals with non-zero reuse and the number of successful runs. So for example, Lexical Selection, which has the highest success rate, also has the highest number of modular individuals in a generation. Now, on an average, these selection methods have some modular reuse, but do solution programs themselves have any reuse? As it turns out, they do. The table shows the number of solution programs that have non-zero value of reuse metric. Each solution program has also been simplified for 5,000 steps to remove the unnecessary instructions. And the reuse metric is again calculated on the simplified program. Simplification is a technique in which in every step we remove a small number of instructions or a parenthesis pair chosen randomly, as long as the errors on the test case do not change. Clearly, almost all solutions have non-zero value of reuse. What this means is, even if different selection methods have different number of modular individuals in a given generation, the solution produced by them all have modules in them. This leads to a possibility that a high number of modular individuals in any given generation leads to high chances of producing a solution. a possibility which we have not explored in this paper, but which can be taken up as a future work. Let us now dig deep into the results. So there are some characteristics of the parent selection methods that might explain the results we have just seen. One of those characteristics might be tolerance towards individuals having high values of total error. So we are defining tolerance in the following way. If an individual has very high value of error on some test cases, but very low errors on most of the cases, what is the likelihood of that individual getting selected? And as it turns out, Lexical Selection is the most tolerant, followed by tournament and fitness proportionate. So consider this another simple toy example. So there are 3 test cases, T1, T2, and T3, and 3 individuals. Individual 1 seems to be the most desirable because it has 0 error in most test cases. Lexical Selection will most likely select it. That is, if T1 or T2 comes first in the order of test cases, and fitness proportionate will most likely not select it because of its high total error, and hence its probability of getting selected will decrease substantially. Tournament selection might select it if it goes in tournament with individual 3. So this toy example sort of says that Lexical Selection is most tolerant. Now this graphic summarizes the information that we have about selection algorithms. From the data, we know that both the average number of modular individuals and success rate increases in this order. That is, fitness proportionate has the least of these quantities, and Lexical Selection has the most of these quantities. And now, from what we have discussed in the last slide, tolerance also follows the same order. And it appears that selection algorithms which are less tolerant of the individuals, that is fitness proportionate and tournament, or which aggregate errors into a single value, also do not prefer individuals with more reuse. In other words, we know that these quantities are correlated, these quantities are related, but to determine whether there is a causal link between the two, we will need more experiments. So we cannot say for certain that there is a causal link. So in summary, some conclusions can be drawn. First is parent selection methods influence the modularity of individuals in the population, or at least the kind of modularity we have discussed in this paper. Second, the number of individuals with non-zero reuse is highly correlated with the success rate for different selection methods. We have seen this in case of Lexical, tournament, and fitness proportionate selection algorithms. Third, Lexical Selection leads to significantly more individuals, more modular individuals or individuals with some form of reuse in a given generation. Fourth, almost all solutions have non-zero value of reuse, which basically means if given a chance to use loop-like control structures, programs do tend to use them. And the following problems can be taken up as future work. So what is there a causal link between the number of individuals, modular individuals, and the success rate for different selection methods? And what aspects of Lexical Selection or any selection methods in general lead to more modular individuals? And while we have only considered whether or not an individual has non-zero reuse, analyzing the magnitude of reuse can also shed some more light on the relationship between modularity and different selection methods. Finally, other metrics of modularity can also be analyzed for evolving population. For example, the repetition metric. And in the end, we'd like to thank NSF for the grant and members of Hampshire College Institute for Computational Intelligence for their inputs. Thank you.
So thank you, Anil. We have a couple of questions here. So I will invite Anik to start. So if you want to turn your mic and make your questions.
Hello, thank you for the talk. Can you hear me?
Yes,
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 yes.
I can.
Okay. So my question was quite at the beginning of the talk, and I did ask it in the chat at the time because I thought I would just not want to forget about it. My question is, why did you select these particular types of selections to study?
These selection algorithms, at least tournament and fitness proportional, are the most widely used, at least tournament. And Lexicase is the selection that our lab uses, and we wanted to test it against all these selection methods. And second reason is, so Lexicase does not aggregate the errors on all the test cases into one value, while the other two does. So these kind of considerations were taken into account for selecting the algorithms.
Okay, thank you. If I may have a follow-on question, I would also like to ask you, but this is kind of coming more like before this choice of selections, which is what motivated you to do this study?
What initially I wanted to see was if given a chance, if programs are given a chance to use loop-like control structures, do they actually end up using them, and how these different selection methods affect that process, using loop-like control structures or having some form of reuse. And then I realized that different selection methods have different effect on the this number of individuals with non-zero reuse. So yeah, the motivation is exactly how does reuse or loop-like control structures affect the selection, affect the success rate. But in this paper, we have only considered how the selection methods affect that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Aniko, for your questions. So we have a couple of more questions. Since these live questions seem to be working and give some life to the session, Michael, could you ask your question live, or if you don't, I can read it out loud.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's probably two parts to it because I see Eric has a nice question as well. So Anil, thank you for the talk. That's excellent. I'm thinking back. I'm thinking about the magical power of Lexicase, and thinking also about Dominic's observations earlier on around these problems being needle in a haystack in some cases. So I'm wondering, might it be the case that Lexicase is effectively generating a gradient upon the structures? So in your case, you're observing that in terms of reuse and modularity. So perhaps point mutation type operators can't exploit that, can't explore that effectively. But when you layer Lexicase on top of that, it somehow is adding that gradient or useful gradient.
So the question is there such an effect?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The question. So your question is there such an effect?
Yeah, I'm wondering. Do you think that this is adding a gradient? Lexicase is effectively adding a gradient upon structures, so it's allowing a more effective search of structure space.
So currently we just know that in Lexicase selection, individuals which are good on at least some of the cases, and which are exceptionally good at, which are best on some of the cases, they have high chances of getting selected, even if they perform very bad on the other test cases. But how to relate that to reuse and relate that to this gradient, currently we do not know, but I think, yeah, we should look more into it.
Yes, so I mean, you used a particular mutation, the uniform mutation by addition and deletion, right? So how important is that operator to your observations around the trends in modularity? If you use a different operator, would you see the same trends?
So we haven't presented this in the paper, but we sort of see the same trend. yeah, we see the same trend that lexical selection has the most number of successes, and the lexical selection has most number of individuals with reuse. The number of individuals with reuse and the success rate decreases significantly in some cases, but the ranking remains the same.
Okay, thank you, Anil. That's very interesting.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your question. Thank you, Anil. So we have another question by Eric. Eric, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I had two questions, but the second one was, let's say, almost completely answered by the last discussion with Michael. So the first one is a bit more general, is about what is or how can be used modularity. In particular, my question is, do you think that modularity can be a sort of proxy for interpretability? Maybe in PushGP or in Push as a language, probably interpretability is not an aim, is not something that we are looking for it by using Push, but trying to address the point from a more general point of view, do you think that modularity and interpretability are somehow correlated?
I think they are correlated in the sense that if a code block is getting used multiple times, then we know that code block is important, and maybe we should use more of it. And we can know what are the most important operations and so on and so forth. But other than that, I'm not sure how modularity will help in the interpretability. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for your questions. I think it's time to wrap up. So don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. I would like to thank Anil once again for the talk. And now I'm going to open the poll for the best paper. So you should receive a window with the options when I launch it, and then you can select you can cast your vote. Okay, so you should have received the window, and you can start casting your votes. The votes, the presentations are ordered. Okay, so